It was a crisp September morning in 1993 at Millbrook High School. The kind of morning where the sunlight barely warmed the sidewalks and a faint breeze whispered through the autumn leaves. Students shuffled into the hallways, backpacks bouncing on shoulders, laughing and joking about the new school year. Everyone was excited. Today was picture day, a moment to freeze their teenage selves forever in glossy photographs. But among the chatter and laughter, Emily Harper walked through the doors with a strange tension. She seemed unusually quiet, her usual bright smile replaced by a nervous glance over her shoulder. Emily made her way to the line for the photographer, clutching her art sketchbook under her arm. Teachers noticed her fidgeting, repeatedly checking her watch and scanning the hallways as if expecting someone, or something. Classmates waved and called out to her, but she barely responded, lost in thought. To the casual observer, it was just a case of first-day jitters, or maybe excitement over her school photos. But there was a subtle unease in her eyes, a sense that something was off, something that didn't belong in the cheerful chaos of picture day. By mid-morning, the hallways were crowded. The photographer called each class in waves, snapping shutter after shutter. Laughter echoed as students posed in awkward or perfect smiles. Emily's class lined up, and she shuffled toward the front, waiting her turn. But when the photographer finally called her forward, she wasn't there. Her classmates thought she had stepped aside for a bathroom break, but no one had seen her leave. The line grew impatient, yet Emily's absence went unnoticed for several minutes, just long enough for panic to quietly take root among the teachers monitoring the chaos. The first sign of alarm came when the principal, walking past the empty desk where Emily should have been seated, noticed her belongings untouched. Her backpack still rested on the bench, her art supplies neatly arranged as if she had simply stepped away for a moment. But the pencil on top of the sketchbook was broken, something she would never have left that way. Teachers began calling out her name, first quietly, then with growing urgency. Students whispered among themselves, some growing uneasy, others trying to brush it off. Something about the way Emily had vanished felt unnatural, almost deliberate, though no one could put their finger on why. By 10:30 a.m., it became clear Emily Harper had vanished from Millbrook High School without a trace. Doors were checked, hallways combed, bathrooms and stairwells searched, but she was nowhere to be found. Her friends were interviewed, the janitor questioned, even the bus drivers and cafeteria staff. No one had seen her leave, no one had witnessed anything suspicious, yet her absence was impossible to ignore. The cheerful morning had transformed into a growing shadow of fear, and the whisper of the first rumors began. Did she just run away? Was it an accident? But deep down, everyone sensed the terrifying possibility that Emily Harper hadn't just disappeared. Something had taken her. Panic set in almost immediately after it became clear that Emily Harper was missing. The principal called her parents, who rushed to the school in disbelief, their faces pale and eyes wide with fear. Police were contacted, and within minutes, the small town of Millbrook transformed from a sleepy community into a scene of frantic chaos. Officers scoured the school grounds, checking every classroom, stairwell, and hidden corner. Friends were questioned repeatedly, and classmates were asked to retrace their steps, but no one could remember seeing Emily leave. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The initial search quickly spread beyond the school. Local police, joined by volunteers from the community, combed the surrounding woods, parks, and abandoned lots. The air was heavy with the scent of fall leaves and damp earth as they called her name again and again, their voices echoing eerily through the empty streets. People shone flashlights into the shadows, searching cars, sheds, and even storm drains. But every lead turned into a dead end, and every corner searched seemed to deepen the sense of dread. Emily Harper, the girl with the bright smile and quiet demeanor, was nowhere to be found. Within hours, the story made local news. Flyers with Emily's photograph were printed and posted across town, on telephone poles, grocery stores, and the high school itself. The town's residents joined in the search, but the growing fear was palpable. Everyone wondered how a girl could vanish so completely in broad daylight, surrounded by teachers and classmates. Rumors began to swirl, some saying she had run away, others whispering about stranger danger, and a few even suggesting that something far more sinister had occurred. Yet no evidence supported any of the theories, leaving only questions and mounting panic. Days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Emily. The police followed leads across Ohio, interviewing neighbors, checking local businesses, and examining surveillance that existed at the time, which, in 1993, was minimal at best. Each tip ended in frustration. Each witness claimed ignorance. The town that had once felt safe now wore a blanket of suspicion and unease. Parents kept their children close, students whispered in corners, and every creak in the hallways seemed to echo Emily's absence. Her name became both a symbol of hope and a shadow of fear, a question mark hanging over Millbrook High that refused to be answered. Even as search parties expanded to include neighboring towns, rivers, and abandoned buildings, Emily's trail grew colder by the hour. Police dogs tracked scents that led to nowhere, while helicopters scanned the outskirts from above. Investigators were baffled. There were no witnesses, no footprints leading out of school, no notes, no ransom demands. It was as if the ground itself had swallowed her whole. With each passing day, the unease deepened, and the whispers of the first rumors about abductions and secret stalkers began to circulate quietly but persistently among the townspeople. Fear had taken root, and the mystery of Emily Harper's disappearance began to cast a long, dark shadow over Millbrook. Months into the investigation, when local leads dried up and hope began to fade, a young detective assigned to the case started digging into older missing persons files across Ohio. What he found made his stomach turn. Emily wasn't the only teenage girl who had vanished without explanation. Over the previous 12 years, 3 other girls from neighboring counties had disappeared under eerily similar circumstances. Each case had been treated as isolated. Each had eventually gone cold. But when laid side by side, the similarities were impossible to ignore. All of the girls were between 13 and 15 years old. All disappeared during the school day. And most chilling of all, 2 of them vanished on or within days of school picture day. At first, investigators dismissed it as coincidence. After all, picture day happened every year. But the more they examined timelines, the more unsettling it became. In each case, the girls were last seen near administrative areas of their schools, hallways that weren't as crowded, rooms that required staff access, places just slightly out of sight. The detective requested archived yearbooks from each school. He spread them across a long conference table and began flipping through the glossy pages. That's when something subtle caught his attention. In every yearbook, there was one adult who appeared repeatedly in the background of candid shots, never centered, never highlighted, but always there. A maintenance worker, a substitute staff member, a volunteer aide. Different name tags in different schools, but the same face. Slightly heavier in one year, a mustache in another, but unmistakably the same man. When authorities attempted to track him down, records became strangely inconsistent. Employment files were incomplete. Background checks were missing. Addresses listed on applications led to vacant apartments or demolished houses. It was as if he existed only in fragments, appearing briefly, then disappearing before anyone could look too closely. No criminal record surfaced under the names he used, but fingerprints connected to minor paperwork discrepancies suggested multiple identities. As this pattern emerged, fear shifted into something darker. This wasn't random. This wasn't a runaway situation. This suggested planning. Patience. Someone who understood school systems, schedules, blind spots in supervision. Someone who blended in so well that no one remembered noticing him. And if that pattern was real, then Emily Harper may not have been the first. She may have simply been the one who almost uncovered something she wasn't supposed to see. Nearly 6 months after Emily vanished, the school tried to move forward. The media trucks were gone. The search parties had stopped. Hallways that once echoed with whispers slowly returned to normal chatter. But one quiet afternoon, as winter crept across Millbrook, a janitor was instructed to clear out unused lockers before the new semester began. Most were empty or filled with forgotten notebooks and gym clothes. Then he reached locker number 214, Emily Harper's locker. When he forced it open, a stale, metallic smell drifted out. Inside, everything was exactly as she had left it. Her denim jacket hung neatly on the hook. A stack of textbooks sat carefully arranged. But resting on top of them was something investigators had never seen before, a black sketchbook wedged behind her math binder, almost hidden from sight. It hadn't been logged into evidence during the initial search. Somehow, in all the chaos, it had been missed. Detectives retrieved the sketchbook and began flipping through its pages. At first, the drawings looked normal, portraits of classmates, rough sketches of teachers, abstract designs. But as they turned deeper into the book, the tone shifted. The artwork became darker. Hallways were drawn in eerie detail, with shadows stretching unnaturally long. Certain rooms were circled repeatedly in heavy black ink. There were arrows pointing to stairwells, maintenance corridors, and storage areas that weren't typically accessible to students. It wasn't casual doodling. It looked deliberate. Then came the most disturbing pages. Emily had drawn what appeared to be a layout of the school's basement, an area students weren't allowed to enter. The sketch included a narrow hallway that wasn't listed on official blueprints. At the end of that hallway, she had shaded in a small square room and written 2 chilling words beside it: "He goes here." No name. No explanation. Just that cryptic warning scribbled over and over, darker each time, as if her fear had grown with every stroke of the pencil. Tucked into the back cover of the sketchbook was a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a full note, just fragmented sentences written in rushed handwriting. "I think he knows I saw. He watches during pictures. If something happens to me." The sentence trailed off midline. Detectives stared at the unfinished words, a heavy silence filling the room. Emily hadn't just been nervous that morning. She had been afraid. And whatever she had discovered inside Millbrook High School, she had been trying to document it before it was too late. For nearly 3 decades, Emily Harper's file sat inside a grey metal cabinet at the Millbrook Police Department. Detectives retired. Chiefs changed. New crimes replaced old headlines. But her case was never officially closed. Every few years, a new investigator would flip through the worn folder, studying the photographs, the witness statements, the sketches from her locker. And every time, they walked away with the same frustration: no body, no suspect, no answers. Emily became part of the town's history, a name mentioned in hushed tones, a story parents told their children as a warning. Then in early 2023, everything changed. A construction crew working on a property just outside Millbrook made a strange discovery. The house had recently been purchased by a young couple who planned to renovate it. While tearing down an old storage wall in the basement, one of the workers noticed a hollow sound behind the concrete. Curious, he struck it again. The wall cracked slightly, revealing a narrow, sealed-off cavity hidden behind decades-old brickwork. Inside, there was a small, forgotten space that didn't appear on any official building plans. Local authorities were called immediately. When officers arrived and carefully removed more of the wall, they uncovered something deeply unsettling. The hidden space contained old furniture covered in plastic sheets, a rusted metal chair bolted to the floor, and several boxes stacked neatly against the far side. Dust blanketed everything, suggesting it hadn't been touched in years, possibly decades. The air inside was stale, suffocating, almost preserved in time. And then, in one of the boxes, investigators found items that made their blood run cold: outdated school supplies from the early 1990s and a faded Millbrook High School gym t-shirt. The discovery triggered an immediate escalation. The FBI was notified due to the potential link to multiple cold cases across state lines. Forensic teams flooded the property, combing through every inch of the basement with meticulous precision. Fibers, fingerprints, soil samples, everything was collected. And when forensic analysts began cross-referencing recovered material with archived evidence from Emily's case, they found something that hadn't appeared in 30 years: a partial DNA match tied to an unidentified profile logged back in 1993. Suddenly, Emily's cold case wasn't cold anymore. News spread rapidly across Ohio and then nationwide. Media outlets picked up the story. Hidden room found in 30-year-old missing girl case. Former residents of Millbrook began calling in with tips. Some remembered a quiet man who used to live near the high school in the early 90s. Others recalled strange noises coming from that very property years ago but never reported them. The past, long buried under layers of silence and time, was clawing its way back to the surface, and what it was revealing suggested that Emily Harper's disappearance had never been random. It had been calculated, planned, hidden in plain sight. As FBI forensic teams carefully processed the hidden basement room, the deeper they looked, the more disturbing the scene became. Behind the stacked boxes, investigators found a second concealed layer, wooden paneling that didn't match the original structure of the house. When it was pried loose, it revealed a smaller compartment within the already secret space. This one was tighter, almost suffocating, with exposed insulation and scratch marks carved faintly into the inner wall. The air inside felt heavier, untouched by circulation for decades. And on the floor, partially covered by dust and debris, was something that made the lead investigator freeze: a weathered backpack with a faded Millbrook High School patch stitched on the front. Inside the backpack were items that had once belonged to a teenage girl: a dried-up pen, a compact mirror, and a small, worn diary wrapped in plastic, as if someone had deliberately tried to preserve it. The plastic crackled as agents carefully opened it. The first few pages were ordinary: homework reminders, sketches, notes about school gossip. But then the handwriting shifted. It became tighter, uneven. The entries grew shorter, more frantic. Emily had written about noticing a man watching students during picture day. She described how he lingered near the photography equipment, adjusting lights even though he wasn't the photographer. She wrote that she had followed him once, down a restricted hallway near the maintenance stairs. Further into the diary, the entries became chillingly specific. Emily wrote that she had seen him unlock a door in the basement level, a door students weren't supposed to know about. She mentioned hearing something from behind it, a sound she couldn't fully describe. Not pipes, she wrote. Not machines. The final dated entry was from the morning of her disappearance. It read, "I'm going to take pictures of it. If I'm right, I can prove it." There was no entry after that. But the most horrifying discovery wasn't the diary. Hidden inside a rusted filing cabinet in the corner of the room were dozens of old Polaroid photographs, each one labeled with a date. Several showed teenage girls standing awkwardly against what appeared to be a makeshift backdrop, similar to a school picture setup. Some photos matched the dates of known disappearances from neighboring towns. And one photograph, slightly bent at the corner, showed Emily Harper. The image appeared to have been taken in the very basement where it was found. Her expression wasn't smiling. It wasn't posed. It was terrified. Forensic analysis of the photographs uncovered fingerprints layered over time, suggesting the images had been handled repeatedly. In the margins of a few photos were small handwritten notes, measurements, times, brief observations. It wasn't random. It was organized. Systematic. Whoever had created that hidden room had documented everything, preserving moments like trophies frozen in time. And as investigators compared the evidence to the Yearbook photos from the early 1990s, the face that had once lingered unnoticed in the background was beginning to align with the fingerprints, the property records, and the fragments of DNA that had resurfaced after 30 long years. When the FBI publicly confirmed the connection between the hidden basement and Emily Harper's disappearance, Millbrook was thrown back into a nightmare it thought had ended decades ago. News vans returned to the same sidewalks where reporters once stood in 1993. Former classmates, now in their 40s, watched the coverage in disbelief. For years, they had replayed that picture day in their minds. The laughter, the camera flashes, the empty space where Emily should have been. Now they were learning that the truth had been buried just miles away the entire time. Authorities quickly identified the former homeowner from 1993, a quiet maintenance contractor named Daniel Mercer. Employment records confirmed he had worked part-time at multiple school districts across Ohio during the late 80s and early 90s. His name had appeared under different variations: Dan M. Mercer, D. Allen Mercer, even Daniel Moore. After 1995, he seemed to vanish from public records completely. No tax filings. No driver's license renewals. No confirmed address. It was as if he had anticipated this moment and erased himself before anyone thought to look. As investigators traced Mercer's past, more unsettling details surfaced. 2 other cold cases in neighboring states suddenly aligned with his employment history. Each disappearance occurred within a year of him working near those schools. Former co-workers described him as quiet, reliable, forgettable, the kind of man who blended into the background. One retired teacher recalled that he often volunteered to help during school events, especially picture day. At the time, it had seemed harmless. Helpful, even. Now, that memory carried a different weight. Meanwhile, forensic teams continued analyzing the evidence from the basement. DNA samples were rushed through national databases. Ground-penetrating radar was used around the property, searching for anything else hidden beneath the soil. Each press conference revealed small pieces of information but held back critical details. Officials confirmed they were looking into the possibility of additional victims. The phrase serial offender was used carefully, but it echoed across headlines nationwide. Emily's family returned to Millbrook for the first time in years. Standing outside the high school, now renovated and modernized, they faced reporters with quiet strength. Her mother held onto a photograph from that last school picture, the one taken just weeks before she disappeared. The image showed a smiling 14-year-old girl with hopeful eyes, unaware of what was watching her from the shadows. As investigators closed in on Mercer's final known whereabouts, one chilling question remained unanswered. If he had planned everything so carefully, where had he gone when the walls finally started closing in? And in the end, the truth wasn't buried in some distant place. It wasn't hidden across state lines or locked away in secret government files. It was right there, behind a wall, in a quiet town that believed nothing like that could ever happen there. 30 years passed before the darkness was finally uncovered. 30 years of birthdays missed. 30 years of questions with no answers. And while the evidence revealed what happened inside that hidden room, one haunting mystery still lingers. Daniel Mercer was never found. No confirmed sighting. No body. No final arrest. It's as if he slipped back into the shadows the same way he lived, unnoticed. Millbrook High still holds Picture Day every September. The cameras flash. Students smile. Life moves forward. But some teachers say that when the hallways grow quiet, when the last locker slams shut, it feels like the building remembers. Because sometimes evil doesn't disappear. Sometimes, it just waits. And somewhere out there, the man who hid behind the camera for decades may still be watching.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.